I am Kenya and welcome to my YouTube channel. So I love to talk about all things real estate, architectural, home decor, home design, just all those things just tickle my fancy. And one of the things I wanted to talk about would be, reasons to live in a pre-war building, which also includes like brownstones as well. Now, pre-war buildings are mostly in major cities like New York, Chicago, Baltimore, Philly. I feel like we get so caught up in talking about luxury apartment rentals, like those are all the rage these days. Everybody wants to live in a luxury apartment rental. I feel like it's a status symbol. If you live in one of those, then it's like, oh my gosh, look where I live. But let's not sleep on the pre-war buildings, the older buildings. Pre-war buildings meaning buildings that were built before 1947 or World War II. So the number one reason why you should live in a pre-war building is most of the time these buildings are rent stabilized, so the rent will be affordable and won't be raised drastically at the lease renewal time. So over the past few years, we have seen people get their lease renewals and their rent is going up $500, $600, $800, $1,000 even sometimes. So when you live in a building which is most likely older, most of the time it's going to be rent stabilized, which means that there is a cap on the percentage of the amount of rent that it can go up per year. So you're not going to get crazy rent hikes when you are renewing your lease. I don't know about you, but that's a good thing for me because these landlords will raise your rent not considering your income. When you apply for these apartments, you basically are approved based on your income. But when they raise your rent so high, they don't ever consider your income, which is crazy. Number two, most of the times the rooms are larger, therefore you're getting more bang for your money. So if you go into like older buildings, I know this from experience because I did rent apartments for 7 years straight. The pre-war buildings, the rooms are huge. The living rooms are huge. They most of the time have an eat-in kitchen. The bedrooms are substantial, And so I feel like that is a plus. I personally like a bigger bedroom. I live in a rent stabilized apartment and I literally just got like a nice big dresser to like keep all my clothing pieces. And I'm like, a lot of these new apartments, you can't even have like a nice full-size dresser in the bedroom because the rooms are so tiny. You can barely fit a queen size in a lot of the time. So number two, the rooms are just they're much more spacious in my opinion. Number three, normally the buildings are smaller, so you don't really have to worry about interacting with so many neighbors. They are normally only about 5 stories, tall, the buildings. And so I feel like that's a great thing. When you live like in these luxury buildings, there are hundreds of apartments, and so you are interacting with your neighbors and there's just so many things just going on. Whereas if you're like me and you're an introvert and you're really quiet, okay? And you live in a smaller building, that's less people to interact with. A lot of these buildings were built before elevators were a thing, so the buildings are not going to be that tall. So number four, pre-war buildings were built during a time where builders took pride in the materials they used and they took their time. So you'll have real hardwood floors, which I feel like is a major plus. Crown moldings a lot of the times. Wall trim on the bottoms. And the walls are thicker because of proper installation, which reduces the nuisance of noise, okay? So I'm always on YouTube. Architectural Digest, the channel, is my jam. Homeworthy, Apartment Therapy, all the home shows I live for, okay? And a lot of these people show like these older apartments that they live in, just to see how some older buildings have like dumbwaiters. You have some buildings that still have butler's pantries in their apartments. Just the thought out process, the pocket doors, the arches, like beautiful, beautiful. And the walls are thicker and they have really nice floors. Now all the apartments have like these cheap laminate floors. I got some on my floor right now where I'm just like, they couldn't have spent the little extra coin to make the floors better. But like I said, I love that about pre-war buildings. So number five, most pre-war buildings are in major cities where there is access to public transportation and the convenience of stores, so there is no need to own a car. So that's another great thing. Like I personally live in a major city, My apartment isn't pre-war. It was built in 2001. However, the train station is 4 minutes up the street. When I gotta go into the city for work, I literally take a 4-minute walk up the street, get up to the train station. I was a kid, my grandmother lived in this pre-war building, and there were like stores on the bottom of the building. So it was like a Chinese store, just your regular corner store or bodega, wherever you live, however you call it. There was like a laundromat. There was like, you just walk down the steps of her pre-war building and boom, everything you need right there, okay? Walk outside, right, stand on the corner, there's the bus stop, you know? So that's a convenience. Number 6, pre-war buildings have gas stoves, unlike newer buildings that have electric stoves. Especially if you like to cook, this will be important. Now, I love a gas stove. I have not lived anywhere yet that has an electric stove, but I live for a gas stove. I'll be in the kitchen chefing, okay? I need a gas stove. Gas stove me, please, okay? Number 7, most of the time, utilities are included in the rent because these buildings were built before meters were created for each apartment. So you get your apartment and gas and electric is already included in the rent. You don't have to worry about that on the side. And I'm going to tell you, in these pre-war buildings, from what I remember from being a kid, when the heat come on, them pipes be knocking. The radiators, it be nice and toasty up in here, okay? Nice and toasty. And if you get a little too hot, you just crack the window a bit. Just crack it up a bit, all right? So I love that about pre-war buildings, okay? Number 8, pre-war buildings have fire escapes, which can be great to house plants or just step onto for some fresh air and see what's going on the streets below. Now, I feel like a lot of these like newer luxury buildings, they have a lot of floor to ceiling windows. Sometimes you might have a balcony, sometimes you may not, depending on, you know, the builder. Really expensive to live in a high-rise building, number 1. And number 2, to have a balcony, that is definitely a luxury because not a lot of the luxury high-rises have balconies. And so just to have that fire escape, I remember being a kid and my grandmother, she would have all her plants set out on the fire escape. She would water them, you know, do all the things. And then when we wanted some fresh air, we could just step out into the fire escape and just, you know what I'm saying, just look around and see what's going on below us. And number 9, since living in luxury buildings have been aspirational lately because people are obsessed with aesthetics and how they appear to others, renting a pre-war apartment can most of the time yield less applications and less competition to secure a place. When you are applying for an apartment, like I said, most people, they want the new. If you don't mind having a white refrigerator or a white stove, okay? Less competition because most people want the stainless steel appliances. They want, you know, the lavish living. And I get it, I want to live lavish too. However, you can fix your apartment up to your liking and make it, you know, cozy and nice and comfy for you. It's all about how you decorate your apartment. Number 10, I feel like one of the major keys is if you live in a pre-war apartment, whether it be a brownstone, a smaller building, you will most likely know that landlord personally and you will most likely be able to contact him directly if you have any issues with your apartment. Versus living in these larger apartment buildings where you have to go down to the office and put in a work order and you're talking to the leasing professionals and it's just a lot of hoopla sometimes. And it's just so convenient to just call up the owner and say, hey, my toilet is running, can you help me fix it? Or there is mold on the walls, or whatever it is you need. Having that direct contact with the person who owns the property, I feel like is just a major plus. I love nostalgia. I love looking at older properties. Like I said, I'm always on YouTube and I'm watching people walk through abandoned houses that were abandoned since the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s. And it's like a time capsule. And I'm just like, just over here, just, you know, with my tea or my coffee, just watching it like, oh my God, like the mid-century modern furniture, like just the architecture, everything is just great. And then I'm reminiscing on the house that I grew up in. And I just love all the things, you know? And also just seeing how like people do decorate their pre-war apartments and how they put their own spin on it and how it's just not like a cookie cutter apartment. Because like I said, I've been renting apartments for 7 years. I go, and even today, because of my nature of work, I'm constantly in luxury buildings. Most of these apartments are cookie cutter. It's copy and paste. There's nothing like interesting about them to me. And I'm just like, give me the older apartment, please. Give me the pre-war apartment, please. Sorry if I was a little bit chatty. I just get kind of excited when I start talking about things like this. But I hope you enjoyed my 10 reasons to live in a pre-war apartment in the year of 2024. And if you made it this far into the video, I would like to thank you guys for coming to kick it with me today. And I will see you guys in my next YouTube video. Toodles!